There's a simple rulebook in war: advancing is good, retreating is bad. But what if I told you about a battle where the enemy rewrote that book entirely? A battle where the Germans left a door wide open, inviting an American unit to achieve a perfect success. This is the story of a strategic crime scene where the act of winning was the fatal mistake. And we're going to unravel the one impossible question: how do you rescue an army from its own victory? Sound of a gentle late-night rain against a window pane, a soft chair creak, the rustle of a turning page come closer. Let me tell you about a map. Not just any map, but one drawn up in the autumn of 1918, in the dying days of the Great War. On paper, it was a masterpiece of military geometry. Clean lines, confident arrows, symbols of overwhelming force pushing through the dark tangle of the Argonne Forest in France. This map was a promise, signed in the ink of generals, that said, "Go here, and you will be safe. Go here, and you will be victorious." It was a piece of paper that held the cold, clean logic of war. And for Major Charles Whittlesey, a New York lawyer now commanding a battalion of the 77th Liberty Division, that logic was everything. Imagine him now, on the evening of October 2nd. The air is cold, thick with the smell of damp earth, rotting leaves, and the faint, metallic tang of cordite that never quite leaves your clothes. He and his men, over 550 of them, a mix of street-smart kids from the Lower East Side and farm boys who'd never seen a building taller than a silo, have done the impossible. They have done exactly what the map demanded. They pushed through a section of forest so dense the Germans called it the wilderness, a place of snarled ravines and thickets that could swallow a man-whole. They now occupy their objective, Hill 198, a muddy, anonymous slope overlooking a stream called the Charlevoix. Exhaustion is a physical weight on their shoulders, but there's a flicker of grim satisfaction. The plan worked. The first part, at least. According to the map, the beautiful, logical map back at headquarters, a French division was at this very moment advancing on their left flank. Another American division was pushing up on their right. They were the tip of the spear, and soon the shaft would connect, forming an unbroken line. Whittlesey, a man who believed in rules and precedent, checks his watch. He sends runners back to confirm their position. He sends patrols to the left and right to make contact. He waits for the reassuring sound of friendly fire on his flanks. But the forest doesn't offer reassurance. As dusk bleeds through the canopy, staining the mist a bruised purple, the only sounds are the drip of water from the skeletal trees and the hushed, nervous talk of his men. The runners do not return. The patrols come back, but their faces are pale, their eyes wide. The report from the left flank is a single, chilling phrase: "Nothing but Germans, sir." The patrol from the right flank says the same. Whittlesey unfolds his map again. He shines a shielded flashlight on the crisp paper. Here, the French. Here, the Americans. Here, his own small circle, marked in grease pencil. It's all there. Clear. Logical. But the forest is beginning to whisper a different, terrifying truth. He feels a cold knot forming in his stomach, a feeling alien to the precise world of legal briefs and courtroom arguments. It's the feeling of a man who has followed a set of perfect instructions, only to find himself standing at the edge of a cliff that wasn't in the blueprints. The silence on his flanks is no longer just a lack of noise. It's an active, predatory presence. It's the sound of a door swinging shut behind him. His men are digging in, scraping shallow holes in the cold mud, their quiet confidence from an hour ago now replaced by a tense, watchful energy. They can feel it too. The sudden isolation. The sense of being watched from every shadow. The map promised them they were the vanguard of a great army. But the dark, silent trees of the Argonne told them they were alone. Utterly and completely alone. And this is where our investigation begins. Not with the roar of a battle, but with the dawning, horrifying silence in the mind of one man, staring at a piece of paper that has become a liar. He followed his orders to the letter. He took the ground he was commanded to take. So how, in the cold logic of war, does a perfect success become a perfect trap? Sound of a crackling fire, a map being unrolled on a wooden table. Now, to be fair to the men with stars on their shoulders, the men miles back from the front looking at that same pristine map, the initial silence from Whittlesey's sector wasn't an immediate five-alarm fire. In the grand, brutal symphony of the Meuse-Argonne offensive, A single instrument going quiet for an hour or two was hardly cause for panic. Imagine you're the conductor, General Robert Alexander, commander of the 77th Division. You have tasked your orchestra with playing the most difficult piece of music ever composed, on a stage that is actively on fire. Your entire plan is designed as a great steel rake, with each battalion as one of its tines, meant to scrape through the Argonne and tear the German front line to shreds. If one tine gets a little ahead of the others, snagged on a particularly tough route, that's to be expected. That's the friction of war. The official explanation, therefore, was logical. It was comforting, and it was catastrophically wrong. The initial thinking at headquarters went something like this: Whittlesey is an aggressive commander. He's reached his objective ahead of schedule. The French on his left and the Americans on his right have met stiffer resistance than anticipated. They're simply delayed. But even as this comforting logic was being spoken, the reports from those flanks were strange. The resistance wasn't just stiff, it was precise, almost surgical, as if designed not just to stop them, but to channel them away from Whittlesey's axis of advance. Yet, for now, the conclusion remained the same: the silence wasn't a sign of encirclement, it was a sign of success. The runners not returning? The Argonne was a labyrinth. They were probably lost or pinned down by a stray machine gun. In the brutal calculus of command, a few missing runners don't change the equation on a map of thousands. The plan, the great, logical plan, was still in motion. They just needed to give the flanks time to catch up. But reality, on that muddy slope, was moving much, much faster than the grease pencils back at HQ. Whittlesey, a man who desperately wanted to believe in the logic of the plan, had to confront the evidence of his own senses. He did the only thing he could. He turned to the most advanced communication technology. He had a basket of carrier pigeons. He scribbled a quick, precise, lawyerly message on a slip of onion paper, attached it to the leg of a bird, and sent it skyward. The message was simple, factual, and held a note of restrained urgency. It gave his coordinates and stated the obvious: flanks are not in contact with us. He was, in effect, respectfully pointing out a discrepancy between the map and the world. He was asking for clarification. The reply he received came not from headquarters, but from the forest itself, and it was written in fire and steel. As the day wore on, the Germans, masters of battlefield opportunism, realized what they had. They hadn't just stopped an American advance, they had caught a prize. A fat, isolated pocket of over 500 enemy soldiers, deep behind their lines. It was a gift, and they immediately set about unwrapping it. The first hint wasn't a full-scale assault. It was subtler. The crack of a single sniper rifle from the rear. The sudden, guttural shouts in German from the direction they had just advanced from. Then, the unmistakable thump-thump-thump of a German Maskengewehr 08 opening up not on their front, but on their southern flank, the direction of home. Imagine the psychological shock. You've spent your entire life, your entire military training, understanding that the enemy is that way. You dig your trench to face that way. And suddenly, the universe flips. The enemy is everywhere. He is behind you. He is beside you. The hole you dug for protection is now just a shallow grave, facing the wrong direction. This was the first piece of hard, undeniable evidence that shattered the official story. This wasn't a delay. This wasn't Whittlesey being ahead of the line. An enemy that attacks you from your own rear isn't an enemy you've bypassed. It's an enemy who has you in a cage. The comforting logic of the map, the idea of a forward-moving front, evaporated in the smoke of the first German potato masher grenades landing in their command post. The official explanation wasn't just wrong, it was a fantasy. And as his men frantically scraped new firing positions to face all 360 degrees of the compass, Whittlesey knew the next pigeon he sent couldn't be a polite inquiry. It had to be a scream for help. Sound of a heavy door closing, the distant, muffled sound of a teletype machine, a tense silence. Back at division headquarters, the second pigeon arrived. And this message was different. It wasn't a polite clarification. It was a shard of glass, scrawled in Whittlesey's precise hand. The words were an ice-cold refutation of every optimistic assumption lingering in the command post. Men are suffering from hunger, and exposure wounded are in very bad condition. German machine guns and trench mortars have us pinned down. And the final, damning phrase: attacked from all sides. Suddenly, The map on the great oak table was no longer a symbol of a brilliant plan. It was a crime scene, and the small grease